How you going everyone? This is the third devlog of my new game with the working title Wombatvania. So far I've done the basic movement and camera, made a few sprites for the wombat and background, added a basic collectible, a simple game loop, a store, a loadout, and a few back-end things like pausing, reloading the level and adding character states. After this update I got distracted by a busy final semester at uni and didn't look at the game or devlogs for a few months. But I've graduated now so I can finally catch up again.
Yay!
This particular update was triggered by my game getting accepted into a small playtesting showcase in my city called Let's Break Games, hosted by Wajik, I think is how you say it. Unfortunately I found out only a week and a bit before it was actually happening through a comment left on my last video.
Oh no!
It was from another local game dev telling me that they found the video after seeing my game in the showcase's floor plan. I really need to start checking my junk more often. Also, please ignore the inbox count, this is my spam address. Anyway, the game was in no way playable at that point, and I'm going to be adding a heap of new stuff in a very short amount of time, so let's get into it.
Alright.
I knew I didn't have time to add the original 5 abilities that I wanted to add, so I had to limit it to 3 for the playtesting event.
Oh, what?
I made a list of possible abilities and narrowed it down to swim, since I'd already coded that, dash for horizontal movement, and fly for vertical movement. I also got a few comments on my last videos with other cool ideas for Metroidvania mechanics, so I'll definitely be keeping those in mind for future updates. And yep, if you didn't already know, wombat poop is cube-shaped, which apparently helps it not roll away when marking their territory. Before adding a dash ability, I wanted to change the wombat's jump to make them be able to jump up 2 blocks instead of 1. As well as adding a little more power to the jump, I also turned gravity down a bit to make the jump a little more floaty. These huggable herbivores are only about 65 centimeters tall, but as I've said before, they've been seen jumping fences as high as 1 meter.
Wow!
I then added a very basic dash ability that just moves the wombat forward at a set velocity for a few milliseconds. It even technically works on the ground even though it's useless.
Nice!
I'm actually dashing at the peak of my jumps here, but I think I'll need to adjust some values before it'll actually be useful.
Adjust those values.
I then made it so that the dash ability stops the wombat's X velocity just before dashing for consistency, but I changed that pretty soon.
Making changes.
I made it so I could adjust the dash time and power in the editor, so let's see what increasing the dash time from 5 ticks to 50 ticks looks like.
Alright.
I can almost make it up there.
So close.
I'll also try increasing the dash power from 20 to 30.
Yay, the wombat made it to the ledge.
Yeah. I also noticed this thing where the wombat's speed would quickly alternate between its intended max speed and exactly 1.5 below it.
Weird.
It was happening at whatever max speed I set it to.
Well, yeah.
I was trying to focus on the dash ability for now though, so I added that bug to my ever-growing list of things to do before the showcase and started tweaking the dash component. Firstly, I added a new color to indicate that the dash component is active before I make any actual sprites. I must have messed something up earlier though, because this would happen when I tried to dash. But only sometimes, which is worse.
Wow, what a wacky situation.
I know you're like a hype person or something, but I don't know. Good job, keep it up. I eventually fixed that weird issue and added the dash ability to the loadout screen. But then I came across a new issue where, after buying the new dash ability, the wombat sprite would be loaded in backwards, but the character would still behave as normal. That turned out to be related to the direction that you approach the exit door, so I fixed that pretty quickly.
Yay!
I decided that I wanted the dash to be a forwards force rather than altering the wombat's X velocity directly, which would make for much more natural movement. However, this meant that the dash ability was now subject to the air resistance I'd coded into the character, so they're slowed down immediately after starting the dash. In fact, the air resistance is apparently so strong that it actually pushes the wombat backwards slightly.
What?
Hey, let's maybe dial it back a little. or try a different method or something, but mostly dial it back, okay?
Got it.
Okay. I eventually fixed that and cleaned up a few other bugs until I ended up with this. When the player presses the usability button with the dash ability equipped, this piece of code in the dash component is triggered. Transitioning the character's state to dashing and starting up a load up timer and dashing timer.
Timer.
Okay, what is that? What are you doing?
Trying a different method.
No, I don't. Think of something else, please. The dashing state class itself handles the actual dash. When loading up, no actual dash happens, but the character's Y velocity is decelerated to a stop for a few milliseconds. Once the load up timer is finished, the dashing timer starts and a forward force is applied to the character while it ticks down. I also applied a small amount of upwards force to slightly lift them. Once the dashing timer runs out, the character's X velocity is set to half the dashing speed so they retain some momentum, and their state is set back to in air.
What? That's crazy.
How is that dialing it back? Okay, I just need you.
I'm bored.
We're in the middle of... Just go sit over there until I'm done.
No, I want to say one of the proper lines.
Maybe next time, okay? Okay, anyway, this is how it looked at that point. I also added an extra jump that you can do at the end of the dash, which could be easily exploitable if I'm not careful, but will hopefully make for some easier and more enjoyable movement, since I don't want the platforming to be the focus of the gameplay. I eventually changed some values and tweaked the code a bit to make a smoother dash before Let's Break games, but for now it was working well enough to move on for a bit. I came across this strange issue where the character would still think it was underwater after jumping out and would continue to try to float up to some unreachable surface. Get down from there, we've got a showcase to get ready for. The character state component checks to see if the character is touching the ground so it can transition the character to the grounded state, so this was happening when the wombat touched the ground while underwater. The game thinks the character isn't underwater, so I can't even change into the swim ability to save myself. Also, check this out. Wombats actually do paddle in water and even do that cute shake-off thing when they get out. I'm gonna have to add that into the game at some point. Anyway, I moved all the character state checks to the state classes themselves so that each state handles the responsibility of transitioning the character to the new state. That fixed both the floating up in the air and the running underwater issues, and actually cleaned up the code a lot too. The in-water state, for example, will transition the character to the paddling state if they reach the surface of the water, and to the in-air state if they leave the water entirely. Since I was doing all the water... Seriously? Can you mute that please?
No, I need the sound to be able
Okay, fine. Why don't you say the next line?
Yay!
You're a child.
Since I was doing all the water physics from scratch, balancing the buoyancy, drag, and gravity was interesting. The character would sometimes...
No, I said one line.
Huh.
Okay, I'm gonna have to wrap this up soon. Anyway, the character would sometimes do this weird shudder when trying to dive down with the swim ability. This was another problem with the character state transition, where the swim up timer wasn't being reset when transitioning from the diving state to the paddling state, so the character would try to swim up a little after transitioning back to diving. I fixed that pretty easily and the character now dives down consistently. I also got a comment saying that I should change the swim down button from shift to S or down arrow on the keyboard, which I definitely agree works better, so I changed that too. Okay, I need to go. That's all for this update, I guess. I really appreciate all the encouraging comments, by the way. Make sure to comment any cool ideas you might have for the game, or tips for the development process. In the next one, I'll fix a heap of bugs, rehaul the camera system, implement the flying mechanic, and start to add a bunch of new art into the game to hopefully be ready in time for the showcase. I hope you enjoyed the video and the development process so far. See ya folks, have a good one.